Speaking today on bread, not stone, hunger and homelessness in the land of plenty. Want to let everyone know, if you have one of these or something like it, please turn it off. I turned it off before because the last time I tried to do it, I had to struggle with it for a while. So we don't want to hear your phone go off in the middle of the service, no matter how important you are. For our online guests, if you would like to share a joy or sorrow during that portion of the service, you can do so by entering it in the YouTube chat, and it will be shared out loud with everyone. I also encourage you to identify yourself in the chat so we may better acknowledge your presence today. We have a land acknowledgement statement. We wish to acknowledge that for at least 13,000 years, many tribes and bands have made their lives here, where our church home and our communities now exist. We remember and honor these people who have made their homes in this land, the ones that are here now, and the ones who used to be here. We gather remembering this is our home, but not just ours. In peace, may we share this land and honor one another. Now let's take a moment now and turn around and look at the cameras under the clock and welcome the people that are online. And now you can turn around and greet people in the sanctuary. Hi, Carol. It's good to see you. Wait a minute. I know we will all want to talk to each other, and we can do that after the service with coffee and tea. We're going to have a responsive call to worship. The words will be written on the screen. I'm going to say the regular type, and you're going to say that I am with you in this. Okay? And this is a litany of witness from Philip Lund. To the refugee family seeking a safe place for their children's dreams, say, I am with you in this. To the trans teenager longing for a world that accepts them for who they are, say, I am with you in this. To the parents of color wondering when will the lives of their children truly matter, say, I am with you in this. To the lonely, the frightened, the dispossessed, say, I am with you in this. To the bullied, the battered, the broken down, say, I am with you in this. To the hungry and the homeless, to the silenced and the shamed, To the weary and the worried, say, I am with you in this. To all those whom your disheveled heart is aching, say, I am with you in this. Thank you. The chalice words this morning are, rise up, O flame, by the light thy glowing, to show us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by the light thy glowing, to show us compassion, love, and hope.
Thank you, Susie. Good morning, everyone. Our opening words today are from my colleague, the Reverend Angela Herrera, who's written this poem called In the Church Food Pantry Line. She writes, the day before Thanksgiving, a woman in a beautiful beaded dress, a man with no teeth, a young man with a pierced lip, and one in his 40s covered in tattoos, several young mothers, a crowd of little girls, boys flipping and turning on a rail and hopping up our sanctuary steps. Our steps, but their steps as well, if we mean it, this inherent worth and dignity, and if there's an interdependent web, and we didn't just make this stuff up. Their steps, if we get radical and believe that love is justice and welcome people in. Theirs, if we overcome our fear that we'll be overwhelmed by their need. What's ours is theirs, 15 children and 70 adults, the day before Thanksgiving on our sanctuary steps. Let us deepen into worship with our first hymn, quite fittingly, number 407 in the gray hymnal. We're going to sit at the welcome table. Please rise as you are willing and able.
Sounded wonderful.
You know, the joke is the reason you congregations have trouble singing together and clapping is they're looking ahead to see if they agree with the lyrics. So we can definitely work on that. I'm going to invite you now into some quiet time, and after that we're going to have a bread communion, which I'm not sure you've ever had here in Eastrose, but it's a lovely ritual, particularly right before Thanksgiving. So I invite you to close your eyes and uncross your legs and uncross your arms, and close your eyes and breathe. Big exhale, just to release your body. See if you can put your hands on your lap with your palms facing up so that you're really in a relaxed state, or down if that's more comfortable. See if you can quiet your mind with your breath and get more into your feelings, your spirit. Soften your face, soften your shoulders, and just breathe. 4 beats in slowly through your nose, 5 or 6 beats out slowly through your mouth in a steady rhythm. Seeing how much spaciousness you can create in yourself. Spaciousness to feel. Spaciousness for peace. Stop and feel, breathe, and allow. We'll just breathe together. You may not be aware that the word Eucharist means Thanksgiving. And in the truest sense of that word, this bread communion that we share the Sunday before Thanksgiving is meant as a ritual of deep gratitude for the sustenance and blessings we find in our own lives, and then offer to others in this community and in the wider world through our generosity of time, spirit, and resources. My colleague, Rudolf Nemser, has written this piece called The Bread We Share. The bread we share this day is sacred, grain, gift of the earth gives life. The friendship we share this day is sacred, all gatherings where people meet and touch, celebrate life. The laughter we share this day is sacred, joy and sorrow that rise from love are springs of life. The stillness we share this day is sacred. In this peace is a haven for the spirit which nurtures life, for bread, for friends, for joy and sorrow, for comfort in quietness. Let us be ever grateful and caring and share bread together. Susie will bring around the basket. The bread is gluten-free, so please take a piece while Mary is playing and eat it if you'd like, and meditate on your own sense of abundance and the resources you feel you can share out of that abundance. she does a reading for us. So we'll wait for her to come back and just stay in a slightly quiet place. Here she comes.
I wanted to include everyone.
That was very kind to you. We're ready for your reading.
Excuse me. The reading is The Kindness of Low Men by Reverend Karen Solvang Anderson. My friend Marcy and her boyfriend Brian recently ate dinner at a local Chinese restaurant. As they enjoyed a plate of lo mein, engrossed in conversation, a hand reached down, ushered away the platter of noodles. A voice, quick and agitated, mumbled, "Sorry," and a thin, poorly dressed woman left the restaurant with their plate of lo mein. In astonishment, they watched her walk down the street, holding the plate with the flat of her hand as she stuffed noodles in her mouth, slapping sharply against her face. The owner realized what had happened, darted out the front door, chasing after the noodle thief. He stood firmly in front of her, blocking her way and grabbing a side of the plate. A struggle ensued. Noodles slid uneasily from one side to the other, slopping over the edge. He surged forward, pulled the heroic strong-arm attempt to retrieve his plate. The woman's fingers slid from the plate. Noodles flew and then flopped pathetically on the sidewalk. Left empty-handed with soggy, contained noodles at her feet, the woman stood with her arms hung dejectedly at her side. The owner walked victoriously back to the restaurant with a soiled plate in hand. My friends were given a new heaping of lo mein, although they had already consumed half of the stolen plate. A steam of apology in Chinese came from the proprietor. Unable to eat anymore, they asked to have the noodles wrapped up and set off to see their movie. A block later, they happened upon the lo mein thief. My friend, unsure about what to do, listened to her boyfriend's plea to just walk away. But she didn't. Instead, she walked over to the thief and said, "Ah, we haven't formally met, but about 10 minutes ago you were interested in our noodles. They gave us some extra new ones. Are you still hungry?" The woman nodded, extended her bony arms. She took the styrofoam container in her hands, bowed ever so slightly, and murmured, "Thank you. You are so kind." What makes us walk away from our discomfort, from despair, or decide to stay? You could say a lot about my friend's story, a lot about her generosity, kindness, attention, and thievery. I'm more interested in what motivates us to confront that which makes us uncomfortable and makes us look at the guts and grits of our decisions. The choice is to not address things that are uneasy, unbalanced, or unbelievable. When our foundations start to shake, we can feel the tremors move up our legs and into our torsos. And we want more than anything to make it stop, anyhow, anyway. My friend Marcy could feel herself shake. I know because she told me so. She chose not to walk away. She dealt with the uncomfortableness. She held firm in the muck. Sometimes that's all we need or can do to get to the other side. The side where generosity, comfort, kindness, and action reside. The side where Foundations are firm and stable, and one's shaking walks back to the other side.
Mohandas Gandhi once speculated that with so many hungry people in the world, when God next comes to earth, it will be in the form of a loaf of bread. My guess is that the loaf he had in mind was a simple one, as close to the integrity of wheat and water as it could be. Not like the fancy loaves we've come to crave from a plethora of specialty bakeries in our midst. These days, our daily bread may well be the sun-dried tomato and olive loaf, the harvest loaf studded with currants and walnuts, the buttery brioche, the flaky croissant, the sourdough French with herbs. No, the sacred, whatever its form to you, will come to us, does come to us now, and acts through us in the shape of the most unpretentious bread with the most common ingredients. The water of humility, the grain of compassion, kneaded with our justice-seeking hands, activated by the yeast of love, and baked in an oven of grace and gratitude. Even in our relative abundance here in America, we hunger for this bread. We may set our table with our best silver and feast on cornbread and crescent rolls and biscuits during the upcoming Thanksgiving eating frenzy. I know I will. Yet still, we hunger for simple, life-giving bread and what it represents. Our children are chubby from overconsumption of food and TikTok. Ozempic is all the rage. And yet I believe even our children, who seem to be in a social media malaise and eating too many Pop-Tarts, they also hunger for this bread. Millions of people in the world go hungry every day. I think we all know that. Many of them children, and now in parts of the world that we are hearing about every day. And they too hunger for this bread, real bread. Many families here in our midst, maybe not in this room, but certainly surrounding us, they are one emergency away from hunger or homelessness, just one thing that they might not have expected. As Jesus himself asks in the Gospel of Matthew, I ask you now, is there anyone among you when if your child asks for bread, you will give them a stone? You may have been expecting me to say the following words this morning. We are so lucky. We have so much abundance, right? We're in different positions in this room, but still, we are so lucky. Why can't we just be thankful for that? Sing some hymns, count our blessings, rather than recount our injuries. The pandemic, it took us on a hard and anxious journey. I think many of us are still weary. Surely in our individual lives, there are sorrows and burdens to bear as well. We hear about them here. We share them every week in the safety and love of this community. Even so, many of us have reaped an unexpected harvest of simple gratitude for simple gifts that came during the pandemic, what was really kind of a fallow season with unexpected growth. At least by appearances, we have survived. Some hardships are hidden or even invisible, and we'll get back to that in a bit. It's like the joys and sorrows when I talk about the things that aren't brought up because they are too tender or too private to share. Not surprisingly, many American families would be thrilled this Thanksgiving to dine on one small Cornish game hen, a single scoop of mashed potatoes, a teaspoon of gravy, as long as they can break bread with loved ones in the warmth of a home, any home. With similar simple gratitude, we've gathered together this morning in this, our religious home, to say yes, once again, to joy, to hope, to community, to our families, to this family, to the needy. We have come to say, here among us is bread, not stone. May it feed our collective hunger and sustain us, and may it feed our commitment to be the bread, not the stone, beyond these walls, too. Back in 2020, around the time of the pandemic, NPR aired a story I remember about Elon Musk and his response to being asked for $6 billion to tackle world hunger issues. What are you going to be able to do with $6 billion, he asked, snarkily inquiring. Right, $6 billion, maybe a little, right? So here's the scoop. They did some research. 43 cents is the cost of one nutritious meal a day, and that would feed 42 million people for 365 days. And that's quite significant. Now imagine what Musk's billions, because his current net worth is $240 billion, could do. Add to that the billions of Jeff Bezos. His net worth is a mere $165 billion, and Mark Zuckerberg, a measly $119 billion, and the odd hedge funder in Greenwich, Connecticut, or mansion developer in Malibu, California. I would reckon a crumb of these fortunes would all but wipe out world hunger, reduce the climate crisis, and provide a livable hut or small home for every person in this country. Cities are experimenting with this form of housing, including Portland, in their safe rest villages. Billionaires might tell you that they do their part, that they or their companies are philanthropic, and you know that's actually quite true. And they might add that it isn't just up to them because they have oodles of money to address systemic social problems, and I would agree with that too. It's not just up to them. We can't just throw money at hunger and homelessness because it happens where we live, and it's a deeper moral and spiritual crisis. It reflects whether we have created and sustained a civil and empathic society. It asks us to question whether we're busy protecting what's ours, our property values, our view, at the expense of those who are hanging by a thread off a survival cliff. Perhaps because we're understandably worried about the state of the world, or we're worn out and compassion fatigue has set in, or we're scared. And it's a question for all of us to ponder. At least on the nights I volunteered there during my last ministry, Jeff Bezos is not dishing up beef stew at the Flagstaff, Arizona Food Center. We dished it up. Or at least we had that opportunity. Everybody did. The food center serves a portable breakfast and lunch and a hot, very appealing dinner 365 days a year. Yeah, right, 365 days a year. When I first learned that, I was astonished and wowed. And I can tell you that it is a humbling and leveling experience to volunteer in places like the Flagstaff Food Center. It opened my eyes and it kept my heart massaged. Not everybody looks hungry. Not everyone looks homeless or even poor, but some do. They look a lot like the people in the poem I read earlier in our service, the folks in the church food pantry line. There are patrons who sometimes arrive drunk. Some are dirty and odorous. Others have small children. Some of them spoke Dene or Navajo. Others with a backpack straight from work because they couldn't afford enough food to get through the week. And everyone is treated with dignity. We didn't press them on why they were asking for 5 dinners to go or 2 milks or extra cookies, because humiliating the homeless and the hungry by underscoring their lot and interrogating them is cruel, and it's just not necessary. I imagine the same is true at Snowcap, where we Eastrosians volunteer and where I hope to join you one of these months, and at refuges like Blanchett House in Northwest Portland, which serves 3 meals a day year-round to the needy. I picked up this booklet at the library. Maybe you've seen it, Street Roots. This is for people who are homeless and hungry. It has 5 pages of free meals in it and all sorts of other services. It underscores how many people are in need every single day in our midst. Sometimes hunger, and to a lesser extent homelessness, can be well masked. Some years ago, a woman with quite a bit of education who worked as my DRE in the congregation where I was the minister told me about the years when her children were small. Her husband was having trouble finding work, and they would make 1 small rotisserie chicken last a week for all 4 of them. I tried to imagine how she did that, and it was demoralizing. Many well-educated middle-class folks are struggling, but they can class pass, or at least not draw too much attention to themselves. And this speaks again to how our society labels, otherizes, and dismisses people who are on the edge. Probably the closest I've been to hunger is when I had to eat mostly street food as a student traveling on a slim budget through Europe. But having to eat croque monsieur sandwiches in Paris is hardly the same as dumpster diving. I managed quite well. Have you known hunger? Have you known homelessness? It's quite possible, given what I just said. When I was a member at First Parish in Concord, Massachusetts, a very leafy, affluent Boston suburb, we hosted an annual Oxfam dinner. Maybe you've attended one of these yourself. Here's how it works. If 100 people buy a ticket, let's say 100 is divided up into 3 groups based on how percentage of the world's population eats every day. And everyone pays the same price for the dinner, regardless. So maybe $20, $30, I don't remember. So if you draw a ticket that says no meal, you're with about 10% of the world who are receiving no meal that day. Rice and water, 40% of the world's population. A simple meal of rice and beans, maybe with some vegetables, 30% of the world's population. A sumptuous meal that includes meat, 20% of the world's population. I once pulled a no-meal ticket, and having paid the same amount to attend, I watched a fellow congregant eat a steak at my table. It definitely drove the point home. You know, interestingly, even vicariously, it was painful and humiliating and scary to be sitting there with the no-meal ticket. I went home and ate something because I had a house full of food. Another year at one of these dinners, I pulled a rice and beans ticket. Once I had rice and water. Intermittent fasting is all the rage now. Imagine if fasting wasn't a choice and it wasn't intermittent, that it was actually involuntary hunger. Beginning today and through December 24th, we are collecting items for care bags for the unsheltered. It has been in the petals, and it's still in the petals, and I think Susie will mention it again later, but this list of items There's a whole stack of these out in the foyer, and there's a blue Rubbermaid bin to collect these items. Please consider purchasing an item or two for these care bags. They really do make a difference in people's lives, particularly as the weather starts turning colder. You know, you may remember that during the pandemic, contractors were busier than ever renovating houses. Lumber was in short supply. People were irritated that they had to wait for their custom cabinets or their tile during the pandemic, while all the while working people, everyone from mattress salesmen to professors, couldn't afford housing. Mansions were springing up in hotspots like Bend for weekenders. Like many cities, Portland is awash in overpriced apartments made of ticky-tacky. I know, I looked for them when I came here and was lucky enough to find a wonderful place. Condos that are unaffordable, houses that are even more unaffordable, and there are more homeless people than ever, more than 7,000 at last count. But you know, that's a drop in the bucket compared to Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Houston. In my research this week, I learned that in California alone, you're not going to believe this figure, there are 171,000 unhoused people. 171,000 unhoused people. I'm new to Portland. Maybe you think I have no right as a relative carpetbagger at this point to have an opinion about all this, but I do. I would counter that with a reminder that this is my job, my calling, to talk about hard things like I did last week when we talked about war and peace, to talk about this, to grapple with these things with you, not apart from you. I'm comfortable enough. I'm far from rich, but I'm comfortable enough. I have lots of food in my fridge. I relate to the internet joke, gotta get to the store to buy that bag of lettuce that will go bad next week unopened. I have a home, and it's warm and safe. What is my responsibility as a have to the have-nots? What is our responsibility as a beloved community to the forlorn, the needy, the other, who scares us or might stir up contempt in us? You know, really more from fear, I feel, that we might fall into that hole ourselves than any genuine disgust or hate. Did you watch the wildly popular Netflix series called Made? It's about a young mother fleeing domestic violence who becomes homeless. Or did you watch Nomadland, the Oscar-winning film about older folk who wander America in RVs seeking seasonal work? A reviewer called these productions poverty porn. The question is, do these programs tenderize us, further create otherness, make us voyeurs? Do they elicit a deep breath and a there but for the grace of God go I reaction? On that score, we possess a chilling privilege of deciding on a case-by-case basis whether to offer money and food or food to the homeless in this city. And it's really downright Dickensian when you think about it. Cities talk a lot about building affordable housing, but it's often a meager allotment. Don't get me started about Palo Alto, California, home of many of the famous high-tech companies, where a gorgeous development of 60 units for low to middle-income seniors was voted down because, in the words of one council member, we need to protect the value of what's ours. This is in a place where the average home price is over $1 million. So the bottom line here really isn't statistics, but rather whether under the weight of social chaos and climate change and other uncertainties and fractures, we can sustain the goodwill and the empathy to offer the warmth of bread rather than harden ourselves into cold stones of apathy and toxic individuality. There are so many wonderful role models of community and empathy right here in this room. There are people in Gresham and Portland, people who have re-outfitted a bus as a warming station, food and shower source for the homeless. The people who have created all those little free food pantries, like the little free libraries. There's one in my neighborhood. It's filled with canned goods. The low-cost cafes, the nonprofits that keep the safety net intact or at least viable. The restaurants where you can pre-buy a meal for someone and the tickets are up on a bulletin board and you just take one down and you get a meal. As we commit ourselves to empathy, we make a solemn vow. Here is bread, not stone. Here is my spirituality, my beliefs made manifest, my Unitarian Universalism made real in a morsel of bread baked within the hearth of my heart and conscience. After the service and social time and the brief interment, I invite you to return here to the sanctuary for a social justice town hall, just an open discussion where we're going to share ways that we might activate our collective power to amplify our UU values, even if the impact seems insufficient to the problems themselves. We have the opportunity to join with organizations like 11 that the Reverend John Hasenjager has spoken about, and he's going to be here next week. He'll probably speak about it again. And most notably, in partnership with First Unitarian, who I've been in conversation with. They want to work with us, partner with us, to address issues such as climate change, homelessness, and hunger issues. So please come back, bring your coffee, and share your vision, share your experiences. Nobody's going to ask you to sign up for anything. It's just a way to reactivate that part of our congregational life. In his book, In Search of Balance, John Robbins notes, there are many forms of hunger. There is hunger for food, and there is hunger for love, for purpose, for truth. There is the hunger for health. There is the hunger for happiness. There's the hunger for companionship, for inner peace, for the sense that we belong somewhere. There's a hunger for laughter, and there is a hunger for the sacred. The hunger that lives in the human heart is part of the kinship that threads us all together. We are interdependent beings with a profound need to both give and receive from one another. My late colleague, the Reverend Bill Bond, he tells this great story that illustrates that interconnectedness. Years ago, he served a dwindling church of mostly older parishioners. And one day, a woman came to him and said, "Pastor, we haven't had communion for a while, and I miss it." Being a newly minted, overly earnest minister, Bill wanted to know the theological significance of communion to this UU parish and so forth. "What does communion mean to you?" he asked. And the woman replied, "I cut the bread." That's what it meant to her. She cut the bread. She had a role, she had a place, she had a gift to bring. She cut the bread, and she herself was the nourishing bread. In turn, her need and her offering were bound together, kneaded together. Bill reminds us that if we are touched by the images of human beings starving for food, starving for comfort, it's because it reflects our own need. They're reminders that not only are part of us hungry, but even so, there's a part of us that needs to give in order to be whole, in order to be nourished. Our bread communion here this morning was meant to magnify this collective need and this collective strength. Knowing this, I ask you to ponder yet again, is there even one among us here in this beloved community striving to live our principles in the real world who, if any child, any person asked for bread, we would give them a stone instead? May our welcome table be wide and our spoons long, steady, and ready. May we be filled with loving kindness. Blessed be, blessed we, and amen. And our last hymn is May I be filled with loving kindness. It's number 1031 in the Teal hymnal, and we will sing it quietly together.
These offertory words are from Arthur Foote II. Freely we receive the gifts that minister to the needs of body and spirit. Gladly we bring to our church and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. Half of each week's Sunday collection is shared with a local nonprofit. The fourth quarter of this year, we are sharing the bounty with Our Just Future. Our Just Future counters the forces that keep people and communities in poverty by building relationships and assets that create opportunity today and for future generations. If you are a first-time visitor, please let the basket pass you by. You are our guest today. Now we gratefully receive the gifts of this congregation. As we extinguish the chalice, I will say these words. May the flame continue in us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help others and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, and to hold and provide for others.
Thank you to all those who have participated today. Mary, for your beautiful music. Susie, for your wonderful words. For all of you for being here. For Kathy, who was here helping with the children's message. The greeters, and everybody else. Again, if you have a space at your table on Thanksgiving, please let me know. If you're looking for a place to eat, please let me know. Sad to think of anybody being alone at the greatest feast of the year. Our benediction today is by Jan Richardson. And the table will be wide, and the welcome will be wide, and the arms will open wide to gather us in. And our hearts will open wide to receive, and we will come as children who trust there is enough, and we will come unhindered and free. And we will open our hands to the feast without shame, and we will turn toward each other without fear. And we will give up our appetite for despair, and we will taste and know delight. And we will become bread for a hungering world. So may we be. Amen.
This is time for announcements. After the service, Reverend Robin has talked about this, the Activate Social Justice Town Hall. It'll be here, and we'll just talk and come up with ideas and visions. Care bags for the unsheltered, buckets out there. Look at what I brought. A bar of soap and a toothbrush. I'm going to put it in the blue box bucket after the service. There are things like gloves and mittens, socks, soft snacks, because not everybody has teeth that are good. Tissue papers, wet wipes. There's a list of things. All these things, or most of these things, you can buy at the dollar store. I mean, there's hats there, there's socks there. Just, well, it's a $1.25 store, but So anyway, this is a good resource, and it's out in the lobby. A couple of things. We have a lot of things happening on December 2nd. Earlier in the day, from 9 to 12, we're going to be raking up these leaves. Please show up and help out if you can. And then... Oh.
It's been changed so it didn't conflict with Winterfest.
Oh, okay. Well, let me write that down. November 25th, which is after Thanksgiving. Correct. Okay. But Winterfest is happening on December 2nd, and that's from 1 to 3. And there's sign up. And if anyone has ever attended a Winterfest or haven't, it's wonderful. It's fun. Sign-up sheets are in the lobby. And, oh yeah, here it is with the updated on this sheet. Christmas Eve choir. We'll meet here at 12:30 for the first 3 Sundays in December. If you are interested in singing for the Christmas Eve service, and it is at a new time, 4 p.m., and choir will warm up at 3 p.m. See Mary, right there, wave your hand, yeah. Or send her an email. No experience necessary, okay? And also, if you have an instrument you would like to play, talk to Mary. And if you have black notebook in the past for choir, please return it so the people that are going to be doing the choir this year have a notebook. This is from Kim Smith. Snowcap is again hosting a neighborhood-wide Thanksgiving dinner. It will be on Thanksgiving from 12 to 2, located 17805 Southeast Stark, down that way. It's for anybody. You don't need to register. It's free of charge. And if you want to give donations, perfect. Not needed. Okay. I want to thank everyone that participated in the service. I know Reverend Robin already did, but Dakota, thank you. You did it solo, and you did fabulous. And Mary, the music is wonderful every time. And our greeters, Karen and I think Eric are out there. Now, the service is over. If you're attending online, exit YouTube and connect to Cafe Conversations via Zoom. And those here in Eastrose in the chapel will have coffee in the back. You can visit, but going to do the interment shortly afterwards, and then come back and stay in here for conversation. Thank you. Thank you all.